It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Matthew J. Krieger, DMD, a 1998 graduate of New Jersey Dental School, which is now called Rutgers. He started his private practice in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey in 2002 from scratch. In 2019, his revenue will approach $2 million at a 40% plus profit margin. He works less than 28 hours a week, has a total of 4 operatories with 3 full-time hygiene columns, and accepts PPOs. He started $1 million PPO coaching and consulting in 2010 in order to help dentists understand and grow their business in today's new and challenging environment. He believes in profitability through efficiency. He and his coaches have helped hundreds of practices throughout the U.S. grow and thrive. He lectures nationally on practice management, CAD CAM integration, and the business of dentistry. At the core of his philosophy is profitability through efficiency. He believes there are 5 factors that affect efficiency: clinical skills, technology, team and leadership, systems, and marketing, new patient acquisitions. What he teaches to use in his practice. An office does not need to participate in PPOs to benefit from his core values. Improved efficiency in any office will foster higher quality and profitability. Through various products, services, and programs, he provides the knowledge and tools necessary to assist doctors and teams to create the practice they've always dreamed of and deserved. He's an active member of the ADA, AGD, AACD, AAC, earned over 600 hours in CE in all aspects of clinical dentistry. He has been married to his best friend and high school sweetheart, Sheila, since 2002. They have 2 beautiful daughters, Ava and Madeline. He enjoys golf, cycling, travel, and most of all, spending time with his amazing family. We expect every day as a team of energetic professionals to earn the loyalty and trust of our patients, who will in turn appreciate our valuable time. Matt, it's everything you're saying is the opposite of what everyone's saying. Everybody's saying drop insurance, go fee for service, build the Taj Mahal, treat the lifestyles of the rich and famous. And here it sounds like you're some middle-class, blue-collar New Jersey boy who learned how to make money off the middle class. I would rather own McDonald's than Ruth's Chris, but I think most dentists want to go to the Pankey Institute and learn how to make a 5-star dining restaurant for lifestyles of the rich and famous. But I'm asking you, would you rather own McDonald's or Ruth Chris?
I would rather own McDonald's as a corporation. I would definitely like to cook like they do in Ruth's Chris for myself and perhaps for guests from time to time. And I enjoy Ruth's Chris. I was at Morton's last night for a steak. But there are certainly more people in the United States who can afford to go to and who choose to go to McDonald's on the regular, by the way, than do go to Ruth's Chris. So the competition for unique patients at the Ruth's Chris style level is going to be way, way more challenging than the competition, let's say, at the average, as you refer to, kind of middle class blue collar family. Now, understand, of course, middle class blue collar, where I am in New Jersey, is a family with a moderate 6-figure income. New Jersey is a very expensive cost of living. Home prices are high. Tax dollars are high. State tax is almost 10% here. Real estate prices are extremely high. So here, and I think everywhere else, middle class blue collar is a family that has a nice income, whether it's here, quite frankly, or anywhere else. My practice is not made up of patients that don't have money or don't spend money. It's made up of people that are not ultra rich and who do not choose on average to spend tens of thousands of dollars in cash at a whim on dentistry. But my patients spend money on teeth as they do on Uggs boots and cell phones and Ruth's Chris dinners. From a business standpoint, I want to own McDonald's, or I like to say I'd rather own Hyundai than Mercedes. I like Mercedes as a car, but if I'm here to make money, Hyundai makes more. So does Honda. So does Toyota. I think dentists have a challenge in their identities in dentistry. They all graduate with this desire to gaze upon the beauty of their amazing crowns and go to Pankey and all those places. But most people walking around, Howard, don't think about teeth the way dentists do. I've just figured out a way to serve the needs of the people who come to my practice, give them what it is that they want at the highest level I can, at a reasonable price, make them feel happy and my team feel happy.
And by the way, a lot of those people who teach this, quality Mercedes-Benz dentistry, and they say they have a private practice doing this, if they're really rich and famous doing this, you go into their office, they're only treating dentists. You have to be a dentist to have value this type of dentistry and have the money to pay for. But it's a lot of the things that I went to Panky just because I found it extremely fascinating. But that doesn't mean that everybody in America is going to value the same thing. You talk about there are 5 factors that affect efficiency: clinical skills, technology, team and leadership, systems, marketing, new patient, and acquisitions. Dentists they only want to learn clinical. They just want to learn bone grafting, and so talk clinical, because let's start with clinical, since that's the only thing they want to listen about anyway.
Funny, because to me it's the thing that least generates success after a certain level in dentistry. Once you kind of, for the average practitioner, once you have become competent to meet the standard of care and provide quality dentistry to patients, once you're able to do crown and bridge and restorative dentistry and solve the average need, the success of your company has little to do with teeth and the procedures and how advanced you are, but more likely how you run the company. Clinical dentistry is really important. And I like you, Howard, I believe that you should strive for excellence in clinical dentistry. My suggestion, however, is that your striving for excellence probably has more to do with your own internal drive and ego than it will to produce, for most dentists, a major change in the success of their business. Most dentists do not have clinical practice problems. Most dentists have business management and operational problems. They look at the world through dentists' eyes, so they can't relate to how their patients really see them.
Yeah, and they talk very differently than physicians. I mean, there's 1 million physicians in the United States. There's 211,000 Americans alive with an active license to practice dentistry today. So there's 5 times as many physicians. But when you go to dinner with physicians, they never talk about the Pankey Institute, or they never talk about their new MRI machine or their laser or their CAD CAM. It's just that type of stuff's just pretty much all assumed. I mean, you usually, but go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I agree.
Yeah. I just find it seems like dentists want to validate themselves. And for me to be a good dentist, I have to have these alphabet soups behind my name. But you don't look at, I don't know of any of my MD friends who have anything behind their name other than just MD. They don't have MAGD, FAGD, they don't have all that stuff. I've never heard him sit there and say, oh, wow, I'm really excited about this new, $100,000 machine, like a laser or CAD CAM. They never talk about technology, equipment, alphabet behind the deals. They just talk about patients and diseases and all that kind of stuff. So you think when you say there are 5 factors that affect efficiencies, well, what should they know about clinical skills to affect their efficiency?
Well, what they should know about clinical skills are which skills are the most important skills in today's environment to grow your business. I mean, what should they be focused on? Howard, I just came from a client of mine in Sarasota, Florida, young guy, starting a beautiful practice. He's going to be an amazingly successful dentist. I have no doubt about it. He's 29 years old, and he's consumed with, and perhaps rightfully so, all of these porcelain techniques and advanced, CERAC bonding and how to make these beautiful anterior aesthetic crowns and all of these alternative means for creating amazing dentistry. But he can't do it in extract. He didn't learn that in dental school. He doesn't place implants. He doesn't provide bone grafts. Molar endodontics are challenging for him. So he has these patients coming into his office, and they need, 2 crowns and an extraction of a molar and a graft and a membrane and an implant. And he's only able to address 20 to 30% of their need, to extract 20 to 30% of their dollars, and runs a tremendous risk of losing them to the specialty nebulae out there where they go to the surgeon and return in 6 months, or go to a periodontist and never come back. And more than that, what if the patient's chief complaint, Howard, if I came to your office and they said, I have a toothache, my tooth hurts on the upper right, and I think I need it out. What I want from you is to take it out. What I definitely don't want from you is an explanation of why it needs to come out, and then a little piece of paper that tells me where I can go when I can get an appointment there for someone else who's more qualified than me to do what it is that I need. So my experience of your business is, so what have you done for me lately? I came here for you to fix me, and you can't do it. Someone else can. And so clinical skills to me means having the capability and the competence to serve the needs of your target patient population, whatever that is, whether it's pediatric or geriatric or cosmetic or orthodontic. Your practice has a certain look to it, population-wise. Your clinical armamentarium needs to provide the majority of their demands and needs in order to satisfy them. The value that they look for in your practice has to be reflected in your clinical skills.
So I'm in here in Phoenix, Arizona. So Mesa's got a dental school. Glendale's got a dental school, 2 dental schools, dumping out almost 200 dentists a year. They're private schools. So I know the national average student loan debt is about $285,000, but it seems like everybody I meet out here, they're graduating $400,000 in debt. So you just mentioned CERAC. So when they come out of school, their first question is, if I buy a CERAC machine, a CAD CAM, and a new BioLace laser, I just doubled my student loan debt. Do I have to buy $300,000 pieces of equipment to be as successful as Matthew Krieger?
I'm going to answer that question in 2 ways. The first answer is yes. But the stipulation, or the second answer, is I don't know that you have to do it necessarily right now. I think if you look at the totality of your practice, and if you want to be competitive in a highly technical marketplace, then I think, yes, technology incorporation into a dental practice is not an if or a maybe anymore. It's a necessity. Do you need to do it the day you graduate dental school? I don't think so. But should it be sort of on your business plan? Absolutely. And should you look at it the same way as you look at the debt of dental school? I don't know that I would. Dental school debt, I think, has less of a certainty in return on investment in immediate dollars than does, say, a cone beam, where I can now diagnose more procedures to do in my office. Everybody who graduates dental school has sort of the same degree. Maybe someone is more competent than another, but everyone's a DDS or a DMD. If I want to do an extraction or an implant, and the standard of care, whether it be sort of assumed or written, is a cone beam, and I don't have that, maybe I can't do that procedure. If a lab bill for a crown is $200, and CERAC or E4D or whatever it is allows me to do that crown at a lower cost, which is more efficient and gets my patients in and out faster, does that grow my business quicker? So I don't think the answer to your question is as easy as yes, no. I believe that through the course of a career, certainly for a younger dentist, those things are a necessity. I am certain, and I have clients who have none of those things that have successful practices. I think it's becoming, maybe you agree or disagree with me. I think it's becoming harder and harder to not have that technology and compete.
You think?
What do you think?
Well, the one thing that drives me the craziest is when people say the United States of America, because there's no such thing. I mean, you can't compare Alaska to New Jersey. You can't compare Wichita, Kansas to Sarasota, Florida. Even the Federal Reserve says there's 9 economic economies. So I think for the average suburban practice in throughout the country, where people
if you pick the 10 biggest cities where people are pressed for time, where they have, multiple children and they're running around, where their needs are general restorative and implant dentistry, I think that technology is an important component of, and can only help, if incorporated appropriately, can only help a practice grow. There are absolutely places where you probably don't need it, and absolutely places where the option to practice without it doesn't exist. But CAD CAM, cone beam, 3D technology, to me, 20 years into its maturation, certainly CAD CAM's been around 20 years more, they're no longer kind of bells and whistles in dentistry. Like an MRI machine in medicine is not super cool new technology. I mean, you need one. You have to have it. If you don't have it, you have to refer someone to get it. I think your question about the debt and student loans and students coming out was really, when do I have to incur this debt?
Well, I could do every show every day with someone coming on the show who's an expert in CERAC, CAD CAM, CBT, lasers. But I firmly believe that the number one return on investment is consulting. I mean, every one of my friends that collects $2 to $4 million a year, they didn't have one consultant. They had a different one every 5 years for their whole 30 years. I mean, my God, I opened up in '87. I had Sally McKenzie in my office within 6 months. I mean, that was just the beginning. On and on and on. So I think So what I wanted to ask you, the reason I brought you on the show is I'm really impressed with what you're doing. If you go to his website, milliondollarppo.com, I want to know, what are my homies going to find on milliondollarppo.com, and talk about your journey. How did you graduate from Rutgers in '98, and now you have a website, milliondollarppo.com? Where did this all come from?
It came from a failed business attempt at putting on CE. It's a long story, but I expanded my practice and built a classroom, a lecture hall, a small one at that, in 2007. Not a great time. And my grand plan was I was going to pay guys like you to lecture in my facility and charge dentists, a ticket to show up. And your name and their ticket combined with a couple of sandwiches would make me a passive income. Of course, the industry changed dramatically. CE became significantly less expensive, and certainly non-clinical CE became almost free, because of the big three, Shine, Patterson, and Benco, sort of giving it away to sell stuff. I found myself with a classroom and no one to fill it. So a friend of mine who was in the industry invited a couple of his dental customers to come in to do like a round table discussion. I led the round table. I talk too much, so by led the round table, I mean I monopolized all the time in the round table by lecturing, not intentionally, but and the conversation was, how is it that you take all this insurance, you don't work all that much, and you seem happy and you make all this money, meaning relative to collection, you make a high profit. What are the secrets? And I answered them honestly. This is what we do, and this is how we do it, and this is why we do it, and these are the policies and processes and operations. This is what we do clinically, and this is what we do managerially, and this is how we bring in new people, and so forth, so on. And all of them had the same sort of response, which is, can you come to my office and teach me this? And of course, I thought, well, no, I don't do that. I had a friend who was in the consulting sphere who came to me and said, if people are asking you to come teach this, why don't you do it? And so,
are you talking about Jason Siruchek?
Yeah, Jason Siruchek, he's not with $1 Million PPO anymore, but Jason and I started the company sort of together. Jay has moved on to do some other amazing things in dentistry, but his suggestion was, why don't we do this? And we did. We partnered with Henry Schein early on, and they referred us some business, and we knew some local people, and we had some dentists reach out, and all of a sudden I found myself sort of on the national lecture circuit, and speaking at AGD and ADA and doing all this fun stuff. You and I have crossed paths. People heard about the idea that there's this guy out there who's saying different things than everyone else, primarily that you can take insurance and it's okay and you can make money. And I hated the feeling that I got having dentists look down their nose at me because they were fee for service and I was one of those PPO guys. I had a nicer car than them and I made more money than they did, but they sort of looked at me with this disdain, like fee for service was the gold standard.
Right. I
just didn't see it that way.
Yeah, I mean that was my first taste of panking. I let him know it. I mean the first day I cancel a week, I go down there. Erwin Becker starts the deal, and his first lecture is the A patient, the B patient, the C patient, the D patient. He explains them all and says how you don't want any of the D or the C or the whatever. And it's like you just described my entire pedigree. I'm from Parsons, Kansas. We're CDF people. And they need a dentist too. And I remember one time I got chewed out in oral surgery by Brett Ferguson and Charlie White, two of the greatest oral surgeons ever. They're still ruling down there in Kansas City. And I was asking this patient about the bar fight that knocked out his tooth. And he said, hey, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a jerk that started the fight or received. It doesn't. He still needs a doctor. And I can't be his best oral surgeon if I know he's the bad guy and deserve to get his teeth knocked out. This is, if he needs it, that's not your place. Your place is every single person needs a dentist. This guy's in here right now and he needs dentistry. He doesn't need your 20 questions about what happened in a bar at 1:30 in the morning. So again, I tell these guys, they love to learn about bonding agents. They love all that stuff, but they tell you, on Dental Town, if you just said, okay, what are all the stressful, plain bitching and moaning threads all about?
Business of dentistry.
Well, it has to do with people. It's either their patients or their staff. And you know how they leave their staff after the root canal, they run back to their private office and shut the door, and they're in there by themselves alone. They don't want to deal with staff. I always tell them, successful people are the ones willing to have the most uncomfortable conversations. And I can't believe how many interviews I've sat with dentists trying to interview a new office manager. And he sits there for the whole hour talking about himself, his practice, his business, his vision. And it's like, dude, you're selling yourself. She's looking for a job and you're trying to sell her to take your money. How do you get some man who would rather look at the periodic table than his staff and be a team and a leader?
I wish the answer were so easy. Well, first of all, I think that in order for dentists to decide to get help, the pain of their practice has to be economic. So based on that, so how they come to a consultant like you or I or anyone else out there is rarely, I want to be better at business management or a better leader. There's some crap broken in my practice and it's costing me money. I don't have enough money. I need more money. I'm worried about money, some kind of money. That is the symptom that brings them to the proverbial office. My hope is that through implementation of some basic business systems that they can connect to those, some immediate improvement in the economics of their practice that sort of opens their mind to the capability or possibility that there's more here to gain. So I go for the low-hanging fruit like every other consultant does, and hopefully for a percentage of clients, that low-hanging fruit opens their eyes to the possibility of higher-hanging fruit. Because you and I both know, Howard, there's only so much low-hanging fruit. Every consultant who comes into an office starts with the obvious stuff that's broken that can have some immediate return. And believe you me, and you know this, offices are super broken and there's lots of low-hanging fruit in most of them. Those clients that become super successful, the Howard Ferrans of the world, use the low-hanging fruit and see, hey, wow, what about the mid-hanging fruit and the high-hanging fruit? And the mid and high-hanging fruit are just like you said, leadership, better management, the more right brain, emotionally IQ-driven components to being a good business owner. That's what we try and do. A lot of dentists are not ready. It takes, like you said, a multiple consultant visits and multiple, attempts at having consultants. Some will never be ready. They believe wholeheartedly that this is all about clinical dentistry, and if they could just do a good crown, the money should flow. Some are just really out of their element, but the vast majority, I think, if they can see some small improvements based on what we at $1 Million PPO do with them operationally or efficient-wise, then I think that they become way more open to change. And through our coaching, I think those that can become self-aware realize that how they behave contributes to either the success or the failure of the business, whether it's clinically how they behave or managerially or as the leader of the practice. Leadership and management are the hardest stuff to teach. They're teachable, by the way, but they are the hardest stuff to teach.
Humans are guaranteed the most complex thing in the solar system. I mean, maybe the universe, maybe there's something crazy in there, but it is a very complicated animal to learn. And even the ones you know the most, like my 5 sisters, my brother, my 4 boys, my 5, you think you know someone so well, but they're complicated animals. Systems is a trigger word. Some people think that they're going to go in, if you had all these systems, it'd work like a Swiss clock. All the trains would run on time. And other people think no, it's you have people problems. What's more important, people, systems? I cringe at systems because the number one selling software is Dentrix. It doesn't even hook up to QuickBooks Online. They always, now it's part of Henry Schein One, and they're always talking about all their dental portfolios of all these high-tech companies. And I'm an operations logistics guy, believe it or not. When I tell people, in my lifetime, Walgreens and Walmart both grew 30,000%. Well, everyone knew who Sam Walton is. Well, who's the CEO behind Walmart's or Walgreens? 30,000% growth in my lifetime. No one could pick him out of a police lineup because he's an operator like me, sitting behind a desk, crunching the numbers, getting it done. And dentistry doesn't have any system. When people tell me they like Dentrix, it's kind of like, okay, the discussion's over. You're not elevated enough to even know what the hell's wrong with your office. I mean, you can't tell me how many people called your office last month and went to voicemail. You can't tell me your return on assets, your return on equity. I mean, when Dentrix doesn't hook up with QuickBooks Online, so to me, systems is a trigger word to just saying, I'm still upset that when I was 10 years old and my dad bought his first Sonic Drive-In franchising, the cash register made by got bought by what was it called? Cash register. It was bought later by IBM. But that cash register with just a roll of tape had more business analysis at the end of a day at Sonic Drive-In than I have right now, and I'm had an office for 32 years and 57. So how do you what type of systems do you like? And Can you save your practice by systems when your parent, father, Henry Schein's Dentrix, doesn't even think it's important to hook up with accounting? But when you listen to Stan Bergman on a call or on Squawk Box talking to Wall Street, funny how he knows all of his numbers, his price earnings, his earnings per share. He knows all of his numbers. And I'm just sitting there like, Stan, Can you give us any of those numbers for our dental office from your genius Dentrix that doesn't even hook up to accounting? Okay, that's my rant. I'll shut up.
Well, I now know where you stand on Dentrix. For me, systems are not necessarily about the software that you've chosen. And I say that with the understanding for most of my offices that they don't use 90% of any of the software that they have effectively, no matter how good the software is. Do I think systems are the end all be all of the success of a practice? No. For me, and I would suggest any consultant listening in, most of the offices that I go into operate haphazardly from the moment that they key into the front door to the moment that they leave. There is no protocol, process, understanding of, or a reproducible mechanism by which they get through their day. It's either raw talent of a couple of team members that kind of muscle through, or is sort of willy-nilly, kind of poke and hope, half-assed operations.
Poke and hope. That is a new one. Was that in a Bruce Springsteen or Bon Jovi song? I know you're from New Jersey.
No, it definitely was not. It was probably a little bit more sordid of a thing than that. But so I think systems to the systemless are important. I think John Coy's maybe said, and I don't know if it was him who was paraphrasing, but he said, or someone said, people don't run businesses, systems run businesses, but people run systems. So I believe in both. I think you have to have well-trained people. I think you need technology. I think your technology needs to support the business, whether that's Dentrix or something else. But I think you also need to have good operations. I think you need to have it all. I think the idea that you have one broken element to your business is foolish. I think a business is balance. There are things that you do real well. There are things that you don't do at all. And there's the gamut in between. I think there's work to be done at different scales to all of them. Almost every practice that we go into shows up with a chief complaint. Matt, I was on your website. I spoke to so-and-so. They worked with you. Here's what's wrong with my practice. My hygienist, blah, 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 and I don't know how to collect money. And if you could fix those two things, I'll be a billionaire. Months later, as we work with them, Howard, what we find out is, yes, those are the things that they recognize as being problems, but there's 50 other issues all tied together that need to be addressed in order for them to have the success that they believe that they can have. I believe in systems. I also believe, however, that the classic fee-for-service laziness that is dentistry has at its core a misunderstanding of what systems are applicable to the people who buy dentistry in 2020. So I approach the dental business as a retail sales and service business that operates on a manufacturing platform. And to that end, the systems and policies and procedures and training and team building and leadership that I encourage are all built around understanding that most dental patients are really retail buyers. They are not healthcare buyers. They are not there to save their life or to have a baby with unlimited budget and unlimited time and the unlimited willingness to do what it is that you say. They are there for a transactional experience. I want to buy X, a cleaning. I want to buy Y, a tooth that I lost in a bar fight. And the dollars that I have to spend on that X or Y are minimal and in direct competition with Apple and Uggs boots and Nike shoes and, Browning weaponry and Chevy trucks. And healthcare does not share that same issue. When your child is sick with a disease, you do everything in your power, regardless of what is reasonable, to fix them. There is no budget for curing your cancer. You do what you need to do. In dentistry, there is a budget for $12 fluoride. And if your patient just happened to come from Applebee's and get, new sneakers, that fluoride may not be in the budget. In medicine, you'd never hear a cardiologist have a financial discussion with a patient, and nobody signs up for care credit in the chemotherapy ward. That's just not how it happens. People show up and they say, I'm sick, and if you can fix me and save my life, whatever it is, I'll take a year off work. I'll go to the Mayo Clinic. I'll bring my kid all over the country. I'll do whatever I have to do. I'll move. And in dentistry, it's hard to sell somebody a DO filling because they have it to get to soccer practice in 15 minutes. Knowing that is very, very upsetting to dentists because they have this need, as you had said early on, maybe to to prove themselves or an ego. I don't have that anymore. I used to, but I'd rather have, a retirement account and money in the bank and a nice car than an ego. I don't have to say, oh, I'm a doctor. I know what my patients think of me. I'm a dentist. I'm a nice guy, and their tooth is broken and I can fix it. They definitely don't look at me the same way they look at their internist or cardiologist. And I'm sure there are guys on here who are going to vehemently disagree with me. And I'm sure there are guys on listening into the podcast that have holistic medical practices and take blood pressures and talk about systemic disease with all of their patients. My patients want to clean it, and they want to get back to work. And they want to buy it at a reasonable price, and they want to be able to eat and chew and be happy. And so we build systems around what our patients want, not what we believe they want, but rather what they tell us they want. And by overwhelmingly, and we've obviously done a lot of studies with our own patients. What my patients tell me they want is they want dentistry fast. They want to be here as little as humanly possible. They want to have transparency around what their financial obligations are without any kind of surprises in the mail. They want to feel like they can trust that I'm going to stand behind my work so long as they sort of behave themselves. And they want to feel like this is a place that they can come to regardless of their own internal philosophies about the value of dental treatment. So if they don't think teeth are important, I don't shun them from coming here. I welcome them to my office, because what's important to me, ideally, is what's important to them.
So at the end of World War II, Japan and Germany were destroyed. In fact, both countries did not officially say the rebuilding was over until 1980, which was when I graduated from high school. I still couldn't believe when I graduated from high school. It's like I was learning about World War II in history class, and now the president just said they finally rebuilt. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. But the hero that went into Japan was W. Edwards Deming, and he is their guru god from America. When you go lecture over in Japan, he's their business guru. And he says a bad system will beat a good person every time. 94% of all failures is a result of the system, not people. A manager of people needs to understand that all people are different. He needs to understand that the performance of anyone is governed largely by the system that he works in, the responsibility of management. If you can't describe what you are doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. W. Edwards Deming, the book Total Quality Management. Deming was a manufacturing guy. How much of that do you think applies to a service guy like dentistry? Instead of making cars and motorcycles, we're fixing teeth. Do you think that's an easy translation back and forth?
Yes, I do, because we're like I said, we're retail, sales and service, but we manufacture the goods that we sell and service. So I look at a dental office like a car dealership that makes its own cars. So even when we talk about dentistry, Howard, what word do your dentists, your clients, your listeners use to describe their day? They say, my production today was really good. That's a manufacturing term, production. When you show up with that missing front tooth, we're going to provide treatment for you, yes? And part of that treatment is we're going to manufacture a tooth, whether the laboratory, whether we're going to farm it out, or whether we vertically integrate it and we're going to manufacture it on site, whether that's going to be done in the drop mail setting, meaning we're going to do it today and get it to you right away, or whether we're going to do it over, a 2 weeks or a year or 6 months. But ultimately, almost everything we do outside of some basic maintenance, hygiene, maybe some periodontal scaling, root planing, there is a manufactured deliverable, a filling, a crown, a bridge, a denture. So yeah, I think manufacturing principles, and certainly lean manufacturing principles, are entirely applicable in the dental office. And that's where my fees, which are 40% less than fee-for-service fees, can still be way more profitable than fee-for-service fees in most offices, because the waste, the Toyota transformation came not in raising their prices and increasing their fees. Actually, they lowered their prices a little bit. It really came in more systemized manufacturing of the goods that they sold, so that their price would be commensurate with a larger audience. There were more people who could buy those cars if they could keep the price lower. And so if they became lean in how they made those cars, and I don't just mean lean in materials, but also in human capital, in systems and policies. I mean, they kind of mastered lean manufacturing. Then they could sell a product at a high profit margin. And you and I both know, and maybe your listeners don't, if you look at Toyota, I mean, it didn't take very long for them to become the most profitable car manufacturing company in the world, beating Ford, Chevy, and GM, who had, how many years of a head start on them? 50? And it was all because one company was much more practical and lean about how they manufactured, and the other wasn't. And dentists, and certainly fee-for-service dentistry, Howard, breeds inefficiency and laziness. Because at its core, the only system you need for success in an old classic fee-for-service practice, the only system you need was how to raise your price. You could be as wasteful as you wanted. You could be as haphazard as you wanted into the 70s and the 80s. And if your cost of goods sold went up, you could maintain your profit margin simply by raising your fee. And for many, many years, you probably were part of some of the earlier ones, your practice would be successful because people would pay your fee. There was less competition, there was less fee awareness, there wasn't an internet, there wasn't corporate dentistry. But nowadays, you and I both know, raising your fee is not so easy. People know how much a crown costs because they can Google it right now as they're listening. They know exactly how much every dentist within 100 miles of them charges for X. And they know what is reasonable and what is to be expected. I think manufacturing processes are super applicable. We teach a lot of them.
True. Fear and greed are every business operates under fear and greed, prey and predator. You can't go meet any dentist and talk to him for 5 minutes without him thinking the sky is falling and it's all going to be from DSOs. I just lectured, the DSOs just had a big convention out here in Scottsdale a couple weekends ago, and I went out and lectured too. Probably 100 of some of the biggest DSO cats in the industry. They all, they love Arizona because Arizona started with licensures by credential like 10 or 15 years ago. And you can if you're a dentist anywhere in the United States, all you got to do is just tell the Arizona State Board of Dental Examiners you got a license. So that's why Arizona, 18% of the dentists are involved with the DSO, where other states are not even, where 5 states don't even have 1%. So my question is, do you think, how does an individual compete with a DSO? How do you compete with a dental office who has a layer of management just helping with marketing and HR and legal and websites? And or do you think they can? I mean, is it one of those things where you're going to have to join them to beat them? Or what would you tell a graduate if she came out of school today at 25, opened her own dental office and said, I want to practice just like you from age 25 to 65? Is that going to happen?
I think for a percentage, yes, and for a percentage, no. I think depending on what someone's goals are, I think DSOs represent the sky falling for some, but also a tremendous opportunity for others. When you graduated dental school, the opportunity for you to get out and not buy yourself a job didn't exist. There was nothing else but I'm going to either buy a practice or start a practice. Now, if you mentioned a 25-year-old young woman, what if you're 25 and you're a young woman and you would like also to have a family and perhaps you don't want the stresses of owning your own company? There is an outlet for you and you can work in a DSO and not have that sort of burden. So I think that's a benefit. I think for others, that's not necessary, nor do they want to be involved. I think you can compete with and actually outperform DSOs from the standpoint that I don't think any DSO is going to have a dentist working for them that is going to care more about their practice, the DSO practice, than does a private practitioner who owns his own company. An employee is never going to have that same level of feeling about their business than an owner. And even the DSOs know this, Howard, as you know from lecturing to them. So they're trying to create some level of equity or ownership for their dentists. But I would tell you that there are ways to be competitive. And depending on what state you're in, a lot of ways to be competitive. One of the primary ways is be smart enough to hire a consultant to help you understand how to manage the HR and your marketing and your team. Pay somebody like the DSOs do on staff to do those things for you. Dentists are afraid to lay out $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month or $50,000 for consulting, but they'll buy a water laser for $45,000 on a whim at the meeting that they'll never use. I have like an erbium YAG laser I use to hold my loupes. I mean, every dentist you know, including you and including me, has a closet somewhere in their office filled with shit that they bought for a ridiculous amount of money that they never really used. Most people get more out of having an advisor than they do having a toy. Dentists like toys more than advisors, but there are ways that you can build your business to, I think, be competitive. I find the DSO to be kind of a duality. I believe that there was some benefit to it. I also believe it was created by dentists. So the ability for DSOs to invade, we look at as something that happened to us as a profession. And I would say the opposite. We created an environment in which our businesses were so poorly run that private equity and business investors saw an opportunity to buy them from us and improve them so significantly that they couldn't turn their heads away from that easy money. Whose fault is that? Is that their fault for seeing an opportunity and exploiting it? Or is it our fault as a profession for allowing our businesses to become so grossly unprofitable that private equity came in? If you follow that thought process, what if you make your business highly profitable and highly successful? Then it will be less appealing to the DSO. They won't try and take you over. Or conversely, maybe they'll offer you some ridiculous amount of money to have you work for them and buy your practice. Either way, I think that there's enough people with enough teeth who eat a lot of carbohydrates and don't brush or floss that there's room for all the different facets of private practice options, DSO included. I think, and I believe this, my focus is on my practice and my economy and my backyard and not everything else going on in the sort of catastrophe that dentists love to live in. Run a good business, provide good services, have good systems, policies, and procedures, be a place where people want to be a good person, and I can't imagine you can't have a successful company. And if you don't know how to do that, hire somebody to tell you. I can't give you better advice than that.
I'll tell you, to me, it's interesting how many routine, simple things we've known in economics for a century or two still hasn't even come to dentistry. Like if you go into Dental Town, there's 50 forms, and one of them is designing a practice. And all these people have these questions like, well, should I have 4 ops, 5 ops, 6 ops, and describe my floor plan. Here's my floor plan. 20 years of being on Dental Town every day for 2 decades. No one's even mentioned like sales per square feet. I mean, just routine terms that everybody would think about. Do you see any retail and manufacturing principles that need to be applied to the business of dentistry?
Yeah. So for me, lean manufacturing, vertical integration, a basic understanding of the economics of any business, revenue per customer, revenue per square foot, revenue per hour, revenue per day, value per procedure, or lack of value per procedure. All of those principles need to be applied. I would tell you 50% of the dentists that I speak to in preparation for them becoming a client don't understand what I mean when I say to them, what was your revenue last year? The word revenue throws them. They sort of crimple their brows and say something like, do you mean my collections? And I say, yes. Business owners outside of dentistry, say things like revenue or gross revenue or profitability. I think dentists all should have some basic business course. What do these words mean? And what does something like vertical integration in my business mean? What is lean manufacturing and how can I apply it? What do you mean when you say a system? I think dentists want to buy systems. I think they all call me and say, I need systems. I don't think they could define what a system is. I really think it's to them an idea. I don't think that they mean a written process and flow operationally through, one task to the other. I think the most basic of business principles have eluded us forever. It's frightening. And I'm not talking about unsuccessful dentists. I'm talking about, successful guys in their 50s with 7-figure practices that if I said, what was your revenue last year? They would say something like, you have to ask Judy, my office manager. She kind of runs that stuff and she's on vacation. To me, that's just ludicrous. I can't even imagine that. What if she doesn't come back from vacation?
Yeah. And it's crazy. So if my homies went to your website, they're driving in a car. This is an easy one to, I always try to give them a mnemonic device. It's $1 million PPO. If they go to $1 million PPO, what are they going to find?
They'll find information about our company and how we work with clients to grow their businesses. Most importantly, I would encourage that they'll find a way to communicate with myself or one of my team members one-on-one via cell phone about their business. Because you and I both know dentists want to talk about their practices and they want to share their problems and they want to explain the nuances of what's going on that's different in their business than anyone else's. Of course, we know that's not the case. So that's what I would say they would find. I'd say they'd find an opportunity to grow their business. Whether they're a PPO practice or a fee-for-service practice, they would find a very fresh perspective on what dental practices look like and what the future of dentistry is like and how to run, I think, a more practical business. Dentistry is a very basic, practical business. Your patients have stuff broken in their mouths and they want to buy solutions from you to their problems. How do you move someone from the parking lot to the waiting room to the treatment room to the front desk and back out? How do you do it and make as much profit while being as happy and stress-free as possible? How do you keep people on staff and how do you get out? Is it retirement, transition, sales? I think they'll find that on $1 Million PPO. And a picture of me. I'm handsome.
You are a handsome devil. So when I go to your services, you have the Maximizer, the Jumpstart, PPO fee negotiation services, web and digital development, HR manual, job descriptions, Drake personality assessment. Start with the top two, the Maximizer or the Jumpstart. Who is listening to you right now that says, yeah, I need the Maximizer versus who's listening to you right now and says, no, I need the Jumpstart? And what's the difference between the Maximizer and the Jumpstart?
Well, the Maximizer is comprehensive coaching. It's sort of soup to nuts, everything you need in your business. It's a monthly program on retainer, working with coaches in your office. And the Jumpstart is a sort of phase one or step one of that. It's a launch into the consulting foray, whether it be for a new business or for an existing business. It's a dip in the water, so to speak, versus the Maximizer sort of jumping into the deep end.
And how much is that?
Fees. There are fees quoted on the website, but I'll say on the podcast, fees vary from client to client. The best way to get a fee for our product is to call us. Our average monthly fees for comprehensive coaching range from mid $2,500 a month to as much as $10,000 a month, depending on how big your practice is and how many locations you have. And every practice that comes to us has a different starting point and a different need. So we customize our fees, whether it be the Jumpstart or Maximize.
And what is it a contract? Do they like sign up for a year or?
No, we are a month to month. Yeah, we go month to month because we want skin in the game and people panic about contracts. And I don't understand the idea that I'm going to hire an advisor and guarantee that I'm going to work with them for a year. It to me is like, what if you don't like each other after 6 months? So we have to stay in this marriage together. We have no opportunities. We have to fight to get out of it. I want you to be happy working with us.
I tell them to only sign a contract with a woman if there's a child involved. If there's not a child involved, it's just a month-to-month retainer fee. It's no,
yeah, we're a month-to-month retainer, or as an on-demand. So if you said to me, Howard, Matt, I want you to come out to my practice. I want you to spend 2 days with my team and work on case presentation, or I want you to come out and help us, work better with CAD CAM or get our financial arrangements. What I would do is quote you a fee for whether it's me or one of my coaches to come out, based on your needs and where you are and how big your team is. And you'd pay me and I'd show up and I would handle it. And if you wanted more after that, you'd contact me. And if not, there's no ongoing contracts. We're not trying to tie anybody up. I don't think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the other thing I see all the time is like, not only do they want a year contract, but they want the whole $50,000 for the year, and the dentist. So now they're financing with interest this contract for a year, and I'm like, well, how do you finance a service you haven't got yet? The same thing was with an ortho. It's like you only incur the cost of the ortho patient when they come in and get their retainer checked or their bands checked. So why do you need the whole $6,500 up front? Or the case is 24 months. Are you going to prepay your rent? Are you going to prepay your staff? Are you going to, you got $100 worth of brackets, and everybody says in economics is get rid of your economic barrier to entry. And you just told mom that her daughter can't have braces unless she comes up with $1,500. Then you're going to finance the back half for a year. And that's why when Orthodontic Centers of America went public back in the day, they just said, look, we're not financing this. It's like, why would you finance getting your nails done? If you're going to get your hair and nails done every month for 2 years, do you need a 1/3 down for a 2-year contract? We only incur cost. And I know you shouldn't take advice about getting your hair done from two bald guys on a podcast. But the bottom line is it's a huge red flag when people need long commitments and financing things that they'll have no cost incurred for time to come. But I want you to go to $1 Million PPO. I'm telling you, this is a consulting guy that has more to do with the majority of America than the lifestyles of the rich and famous in Key Biscayne and Manhattan. And like Scott said, you know why Aspen is kicking butt in Arizona? Because every dentist that comes out here wants to go to North Scottsdale, where all the rich people leaves. And Bob Fontana, the CEO of Aspen's out there and telling me, oh my God, there's nobody in Maricopa. There's nobody on the west side. He goes, you know why we're kicking butt? Because we go where they ain't. All the dentists are chasing the rich. And we realize everybody needs a dentist. And on that note, I got to go. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was an honor to podcast you. And I hope you teach these dentists that they can make money treating the middle class.
Anytime, Howard. I was a pleasure being on. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Have a great day.